So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Hugo back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Monday, September 13th. Hope everybody's having a day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Monday, September 13th here today, coming off of a big weekend in sports. Hopefully everybody had a good weekend as NFL was in full swing this weekend. This was the first full weekend in the NFL. As yesterday we had a ton of games on. Rest of the league played. Tonight we got the Ravens-Raiders, which I actually think is going to be a good game. With all the injuries the Ravens are going through, I actually think it's going to be a closer game than I think many people expected, myself included. I actually think the Ravens and Raiders game tonight is going to be close. I expected it to probably be a Ravens win by a lot, but with all the injuries to the run game, which is a huge part of their offense, I think it's going to be much closer. I think it's going to be a game that maybe many people are surprised by, but we'll get to all that. So still more football to come today, but it was a great weekend in sports in general. You had baseball throughout the weekend. You had college football on Saturday, and obviously yesterday you had the NFL. And I mean, I'll get to the Jets and the Giants here in a little bit when I go through, the recap of all the games. But, it really wasn't how, the we wanted it to go, as the New York Jets and the New York Giants both lose. Overall for New York football, it was a tough day. Even if you're all counting the Buffalo Bills as well. I know they're not one of the main New York teams, but, if you're counting them, they lost as well yesterday. So, the New York football teams yesterday went 0-3. And, it is week one. It's knocking the rust off, but, there's definitely a lot of things that the Jets, Giants need to fix. Bills, I'm not really concerned about. I don't think Bills fans should be worried. But I think the Jets and the Giants, there's a lot of things that they need to clean up. And I understand Jets, Giants, they're not these special teams. They don't have these loaded rosters, and they don't have these expectations of winning a Super Bowl this season. You could say they're both going through a rebuild. You could say the Giants maybe had plans of fighting for the playoffs this season. Jets, we all know they're going through a rebuild, and yesterday was a frustrating game. They took a loss, and so did the Giants. So we'll get to all that. We will. Lots to get to today. Yankees as well. Tough weekend. You get the win on Saturday. A really big win. It was a tough, gritty, good win. And then you can't find a way to win yesterday. And, yesterday too. Yesterday we fought. We battled. We just, we're not able to find a way to hang on to it. So definitely a tough loss for the Yankees. Lose 2 out of 3 to the Mets. It's just one of those things where Yankees continue to slide, and you got to now look at the wild card. And right now the Yankees are on the outside looking in. So if the season would end today, the New York Yankees would be on their way to going golfing for the offseason. They would be on their way to the offseason if the season would end today. So Yankees got to find a way to get back into the wild card hunt, get back into the playoffs, because time's running out. It is September 13th. Season ends on October 3rd, so we got less than a month left. Yankees got to speed things up, got to get going. There's got to start to be a sense of urgency with this Yankees team. It can't be, we got to be better. We see progress and, we feel like a run. No, you got to find ways to win now. You have to find ways to win now because time's running out. And the more and more games you lose, and the closer and closer it gets to that October 3rd date where the season's done, that's the final day of the regular season, you're eventually going to run out of time. And right now the Yankees are running out of time. They got to get going here. They got to do something to just turn this ship, because right now this thing's starting to sink, and we got to find a way to get this thing back on track. So we'll see how all of that goes. Lots to get to today. Mets, Yankees over the weekend. Like I said, lots of recaps, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the intro because we have a ton to get to. With that being said, though, let's get to the topics for today's podcast. We're going to recap all the NFL games. A big weekend in football. Despite the Jets and the Giants losing, it was still a great weekend in football. It was still an excellent weekend. It was awesome. It was great. Great to see football back. Great to, on Sunday, you get up and, there's actually going to be football on. That was great. That was just a great feeling. So it was great to have football back, although the Jets and Giants did not get the outcomes they wanted, it was still great to have football back, have football that counted. And, there's a lot of things that both teams need to clean up, and we'll get to those. So we'll get to the recapping NFL games. We'll start off with the Jets and the Giants, then we'll get to the rest of the league. Then I want to get to the fantasy football recap. Kind of just talk about how my week went down in fantasy football, get you ready for maybe any final roster decisions you're making in tonight's game. Defense, receivers, tight ends, not much I could give you advice on a Monday because a lot of times most people's teams have already played, but if you're deciding maybe to put in a flex or something like that, I'll try to help you out, give you the best advice I can, and overall recap the weekend, how I did in fantasy football, and just some player breakdowns and all that. Then we'll get to the New York Sports Update and finish off the podcast with the New York Sports Update. Yankees today against the Twins. Yankees against the Twins today. The Yankees-Twins, Mets against the Cardinals, open up a series with them. So, Yankees and Mets, similar situations. I mean, Mets, although they took 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, the Mets right now are 3 games out of a wild card, and the Yankees right now are 1 game out. So, as much as the Mets took 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, the Mets are still 500. They're still 72-72. And the Yankees are also, so the Yankees and Mets now are like in similar situations. I don't mean in terms of the overall season, but I mean in playoff. Like they're both now, Yankees are no longer in the playoffs. Like we got to find a way to turn this thing around if we want to get to October, because it is September 13th today and the season ends on October 3rd. If we hit October 3rd and we're 5 games behind, well, I'm sorry, that's the year. That's the season. So got to turn it around quickly before this thing gets out of hand. So we'll get to all that. But with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So, it was a great weekend in football. It was. College football was great. Those were some good games. Oregon, Ohio State, that was an excellent game. Watched that game from start to finish. I was excited for that game. I did have Oregon winning. Then Kayvon Thibodeau got ruled out, so I was a little nervous that they were going to lose that game, but they ended up holding on. They ended up getting a win. You don't know how big of a win that is for Oregon. But either way, that's college football. But still, a lot of college football on. Baseball was great. And then you had the NFL yesterday. And the NFL was awesome. And I always say this, every year, the first game's always great. Because it's like the wait, the anticipation, it finally gets there. You get to watch it, and all that stuff. And yesterday was a bad day for all 3 New York football teams. I know I generally talk about the Jets and the Giants, but in all fairness, the Bills are a New York football team. They're not one of the main New York sports teams, but Buffalo's in New York, so they are considered a New York football team. So, either way, though, yesterday New York football was not very successful. Both went 0 for 3. Jets lose to the Panthers. Giants lose to the Broncos. And the Bills lose to the Steelers. And in all fairness, I was surprised that the Bills lost to the Panthers. I wasn't surprised that the Jets and Giants lost. Because as much as I did pick the Jets to win, I didn't think it was a lock that they were going to win. I know it's a young offense. I know it's a young team. I did predict them to win. But I did not, I wasn't like, I wasn't so confident going into the game. I knew there was a good chance we would lose, but I did see them winning if the offense came together. So I'm going to start off with the Jets here. And I understand it's week 1, and I don't want to overreact because I say this a lot with Yankee fans. I tend to see Yankee fans overreact. And maybe that overreaction is accurate now that the Yankees are out of a playoff spot right now. But either way, I remember 10 games into the season when the Yankees were struggling, there was people saying, fire this guy, trade this guy. I was like, guys, it's 10 games into the season. And then things started to really get out of hand, and I started to say some stuff, and then they started to get rolling. We know how the season's gone for the Yankees. So I don't want to get too out of proportion because it's week 1, it's a young team, it's a rookie quarterback. But the New York Jets have got to clean things up if they want this season to even be competitive for the rest of the year. And I'm not saying that yesterday we played terrible. I'm not saying that yesterday was the worst Jet football game I've ever seen, because I'll tell you what, last year was the pure example of that. And if last year we were in a game like we were last year, we would have lost 40-0. We were able to still keep ourselves in that game. We beat ourselves with a lot of mistakes, some penalties, but just mistakes and just mental errors. We did beat ourselves a lot with that, but we only lost by 5. And on paper, it's a loss, and that's what I'm looking at. But with a young team, you got to take little things. And I'm going to tell you what, The first half was brutal for the Jets. When everything that could have went wrong for the New York Jets in the first half. I mean, we were down 16-0. It was like Wilson, and I'm not going to beat up on him, but he did not have a good first half. He didn't, which is exactly why I was super excited and even more excited about his overall performance, because the way he turned it around in the second half, I think you could say Wilson had one of the best rookie performances out of any quarterback based on what he had to go through. He got sacked 6 times. I mean, I've said this for many years now with the Jets, right? Like, I like Wilson a lot. He had a very good performance yesterday. You look at Wilson's numbers, for the fact that he got sacked 6 times, it was under pressure almost every single play, was amazing. And I think in terms of the situation that he was in yesterday, I think Wilson knocked it out of the park. And I think in that second half, he looked like the number 2 overall pick and why we drafted him. He looked like a guy that could lead us and take us to do great things. He did. He was throwing the ball really quick. It was coming out of his hands with zip, hooking up with Corey Davis, escaping pressure and making big throws. I mean, that game turned into a one-possession game because he scored, then he got the 2-point. It was then a one-possession game. And the Jets were a defensive stop and another touchdown away from possibly tying the game. That's how close it got with one score. But I'm telling you this. Based off of what happened yesterday, if the New York Jets want any chance of having a successful year or anything, you got to fix this offensive line. Because I was sitting there watching that game, mostly standing. But I was watching that game yesterday, and I mean, you don't know how painful and frustrating it is as a fan to watch your quarterback in his first career start in the NFL. Not just his opening start with a new team. This is his first career start in the NFL. And he's running for his life almost every other play. That can't happen. It cannot happen. And whether that's meaning the New York Jets have to go out and make a trade or make a signing or switch maybe a guy from left to right tackle or something like that, whatever it is, you need to fix this line and it needs to be done fast. Because we can't go through this whole season again talking about our offensive line letting up 4 or 5 sacks every single game. And I said this just a minute ago. The fact that Wilson got sacked 6 times, the fact that Elijah Moore, who I'm not going to beat up on because of his first game, but boy, was he bad. The fact that Elijah Moore there was a 50-yard pass that went right through his hands, and Corey Davis had a great game, but he dropped the first down. I mean, the fact that Wilson got almost no help and still went out and threw a 258 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did throw a pick. It was a rookie mistake, but that's going to happen. And he completed 20 of 37 passes and had an overall rating of 82.9. That was a great performance. So in a day, I would say that was there was a lot of negatives, but there was some positives. The negative was the offensive line. And that's what I'm most angry about. Sure, we lost. I get that. But I don't think the Jets this season are going to win 12 games. We know this is a developmental year. We know this is a year where we hope. Like, this is it. This was our first game. There was a lot of messy. The first half, there was a lot of guys just trying to get. The first half was a pure example of a young team just struggling and just trying to find their footing. And that's what's going to happen when you're young. The jump to college to NFL is really a lot. People don't realize it, but it's big. It's not just one level to another. It's a level to a whole new world in the NFL. It's a whole different ballgame. So that was expected. In the second half, we showed a lot of improvements. But the offensive line has got to be better. It has got to be better. And it's the same guys that struggled last year that are struggling again this year. Connor McGovern had a very tough day yesterday. Greg Van Roen. Don't even get me started on why George Font's starting. I've said this from the start. I thought Morgan Moses should have started. Font starting. He had a terrible day yesterday. I think he allowed maybe 2-3 sacks on his own. Terrible day for Font. Becton gets injured. He's going to have a little bit of surgery. He's going to be out till at least 4 to 6 weeks. LaMarcus Joyner also injured. So the injury bug continues to hurt the Jets. And I'm going to sound negative, but I mean it. Like, I just mean this. I don't even mean this for my sake. Because I was watching that game yesterday. I was getting frustrated. I was. I mean, seeing our rookie quarterback run for his life every other play, that's frustrating as a fan. And it's a little worrisome. Because I don't want to see him take a hit and boom. Now he's out for many weeks. I don't want to see that. I want to see him have a healthy, good season and see him progress throughout the year and go into the offseason with a lot of hope and go into the offseason with optimism and see the growth throughout the season. And yesterday we saw growth. First half he struggled, but second half he looked like the quarterback of the future in the second half, making plays on the run, throwing, just the velocity coming off of his hand, converting that 2-point conversion. His staying poised in the pocket. There was a couple throws he made where he threw it, he got decked, but he still made the play. Darnold would have been all happy if he threw it across the middle. And I don't want to pick on Darnold, I'm just using an example that Wilson showed a lot of poise yesterday, despite getting sacked 6 times. Some positives, though, from the Jets were Wilson. Corey Davis did look like our number 1 receiver. And as much as I've talked about it this entire offseason, the secondary had a very good game. Despite the one miscommunication on the Robbie Anderson play, which you're not going to be perfect, it's going to happen. The secondary yesterday, or you could have said, was the highlight of the defense. The open field tackling as well was just another perfect. Secondary yesterday, if you're a Jet fan today, you got to be super excited about. Because those young guys yesterday looked like they were ready to play. And I understand this offense isn't, I understand, their number 1 receiver is what? Anderson or DJ Moore. So they're not top of the end. They'll go up against Diggs twice a year. They're going to go up against some better receivers. But DJ Moore and Anderson are 2 solid receivers. Yesterday they did well. They did well yesterday. The secondary, if you're a Jet fan today, you got to feel confident about that. I also liked what I saw out of the defense as a whole. First half, it was a little iffy, but, the first quarter was clean. Second quarter, they allowed 16 points, but the offense was having a lot of 3 and outs, and he had the turnover, so the defense was maybe getting a little worn down a little bit, but they came out in the second half, and they held the Panthers to 3 points. If the Jets second half of football, if yesterday's game was decided on second half, Jets win that game. And if the Jets came out of the gate and played like they did in the second half, Jets win that game, and it's probably 24-10. It's probably a pretty big victory. But I'm telling you, if the Jets want to have a successful season and, see growth, and I just mean this genuinely just for Wilson's sake, not even my sake, not even Jets, just for Wilson's sake, please figure out this offensive line. We can't have this happen every week where he's getting sacked 5-6 times. And when he's not getting sacked, he's running away from pressure, having to deliver a throw on the run, which he's good at, but you don't want to have a quarterback always have to deliver on a throw. When sure, it's a very good skill, but that doesn't mean you don't want to have him have to do that. When he needs to, he can, but you don't want him doing that every single play. That's what it looked like yesterday. But I thought yesterday's Wilson's performance, I thought he was a B performance. I really did. And I mean that in a positive way. He looked really good in the second half. He looked exactly like, I think he was an A in the second half. He looked exactly like the quarterback we drafted in the second half. And removed what happened in the game. Wilson went 20 of 37, 258 yards, 12.9 was his average per throw, which is actually very good. 2 touchdowns, a pick. He took 6 sacks, which I think should be an eye-opener that say, hey, even though he took 6 sacks, he still stood in there and threw the ball well. And he had an overall rating of 82.9. And I'm not trying to pick on any of the other rookie quarterbacks, but Lawrence yesterday, he threw 3 interceptions. So, even though he did throw 1 pick, he kept the turnovers down. And, he did his job. It's the offensive line that's got to do theirs. And the Jets couldn't get the run game going either. The run game yesterday, Tevin Coleman had 24 yards, Ty Johnson had 15, and Carter had 6. So the run game yesterday struggled as well. But, you just got to figure out a way. Corey Davis yesterday had a big day. 5 catches, 7 targets, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So Davis really looked like the number 1 guy, but other guys have got to get involved as well. Tyler Kroft actually did his job. Elijah Moore, he's had a great training camp, but he needs to be better. There was a 50-yard, beautiful pass by Wilson. Literally right through his hand. Right through his arms. Right through his hands. It's just how it is. So, the Jets lose 19-14. We move to 0-1 on the season. I'm not giving up. What I am saying, though, is this. I still believe this team can win games and all that. But what I am concerned about is the offensive line. And there's a reason to be concerned there. And I was optimistic about the offensive line. Offensive line was really good last season. But this offensive line reminded me a lot of 2019. Where we didn't have Becton, we didn't have any of that. Where they just could not keep Darnold upright. He was just getting crushed every other play. And he had no time to throw the ball. Just don't want to see that happen to Wilson. Need to protect our quarterback. That's my takeaway from the Jets game. So Jets lose 19-14. Next week's not an easy matchup against the Patriots, but hey, if our offensive line blocks, we win that game. Simple as that. If you didn't watch the game yesterday, my simple assumption is this. My simple overview of the game is this. If the offensive line blocks for Wilson, and if our receivers make some of those plays, we win that game, and we probably win it pretty comfortably as well. So, that's what I got. So, if we do that next week against the Patriots, this is a completely different ballgame. It's not like we were making mistakes left and right. It was our offensive line. I mean, that's what happened. So, better luck next game for the New York Jets. Giants as well played yesterday, and they lost. So, the Giants lose yesterday, and, it's just getting to the point now, if you're a New York Giant fan, where I understand it's week 1, and I said this going to the Jets. I didn't want to overreact at all with the Jets and overreact with the Giants. But if you're a New York Giant fan today, there's a lot of questions around this team. It's almost the same team we saw last year, where, Daniel Jones, maybe they look like they're having a drive, and then Daniel Jones fumbles, and maybe they're doing this and that. The Giants yesterday lose again, and they lose 27-13 to the Denver Broncos. And, I'm going to tell you this. I don't mean it. Like I said, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. When I was talking about, I was talking about the Jets. It's week 1. There are 16 more week games to go. 17 more weeks, 16 more games to go. So there's a ton of season left. It's not like we're talking about week 13 here. And, right, this is week 1. And in the Jets case, new team, new quarterback, new coach. It's still trying to find their footing. Giants case, though, is a little different. This was supposed to be a Giant team that's really supposed to have a solid year. What people predicted was to have a solid year, have a good offense. And yesterday, they look like the same exact team they were last season. They have maybe a good drive, and then something happens. Or they just can't string it together a good drive. Or when they have a good drive, Daniel Jones fumbles. And that happened yesterday. They were driving down the field, and what? Daniel Jones fumbled on the Broncos the 25-20-yard line? That can't happen if you're Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. And, I get it, Denver's a good defense, which I said going into that game. The reason I picked Denver to win that game was because of their defense. And I'll tell you what, Teddy Bridgewater was a pleasant surprise yesterday. I was very surprised about Teddy Bridgewater. He really went out. He really played well. Teddy Bridgewater yesterday, I think, looked the healthiest and just the best Teddy Bridgewater I think we've seen in a long time. So if you want to use that as, if you want to say, if Teddy Bridgewater, maybe that's just one. Either way, Teddy Bridgewater played really well. And he chewed that secondary apart pretty well. He threw for 64 yards, 2 touchdowns. That secondary got beat up, and there was a couple big plays by Judy, Font. No one will notice it, but, KJ Hamler dropped a wide-open touchdown, or dropped a big play, so that was another one. Really, if the Broncos made maybe 1 or 2 more plays, you're talking about a 34-40 point, we're talking about a 34-13 victory. KJ Hamler dropped a touchdown. He literally did. It was a beautiful throw would have caught him in stride. It would have had a run for 5 more yards, and he would have been in the end zone. But with the Giants yesterday, what I saw was the same thing, a lot of what I saw last season. Just not able to put consistent good offensive drives together. And when they do, Daniel Jones fumbles again. I've said this so many times, and it's not that I don't like Daniel Jones, but I don't believe he's the guy. I just don't. There's certain guys in the NFL that you see potential and you see things in. And then there's guys like Daniel Jones. I understand it's week 1, but it's been the same thing for the last 2 years with the Giants. His rookie year was the same thing. Fumbles, interceptions, getting a good drive together. Then he gets a turnover. And in this last season was even worse, where he's running, oh, he fumbles the ball, or oh, he's trying to make a big play, or oh, he forces the ball into double coverage, it's intercepted. And we saw it again yesterday. Giants are driving, they're finally putting a good offensive drive together, and Jones runs the ball, and what do you know? It's on the turf, and Jones, it's not in his hands, and the Denver Broncos end up recovering. That cannot happen. If you're a Giant fan, that can't happen. If you're a Giant fan today that thinks you got a chance at the playoffs still, well, okay, I'm not saying your season's over, but you got to figure something out with Jones. Because this has now been happening the final 2 years. This isn't something that just happened yesterday. This has been happening his entire career. And yesterday was another example of, can this guy just hold on to the football for one game? And yesterday he turns it over. And that was a huge turning point in that game. That very well could have took the Giants' chances from being here. They were already low at that point, to now all the way down here and pretty much they were sinking at that point. And they got a quick turnaround now, and they're going up against another really good defense. They do. They're going up against another really good defense. And Daniel Jones has got to get this thing figured out. Because I don't believe he's the guy. I don't believe he is. There are quarterbacks in the league that show potential, and then there's quarterbacks that just show not improving any season. And Daniel Jones just seems to be that guy that's just not improving. We talk about the turnovers. If he can just limit the turnovers, you're talking about a quality quarterback. Is he anything special? No. Is he a Pro Bowler? No. Is he a starter? Maybe borderline. But, right now, this is a guy who does not, he's not playing like a quarterback that deserves to be playing. He does not. He's just not. And yesterday, again, with a fumble, and it just can't happen. And the Giants, again, yesterday's offense just stalls. And they started off the game, actually not too bad. They had that big first drive, then they ended up having the punt. Von Miller made a nice play on the first drive. The Giants in the first drive actually looked pretty good. It was okay, maybe they are going to do something. And then it was just all flat from there. Then they score in the second quarter. You're okay, that was okay, now we're going. And then you score a garbage time touchdown in the final 30 seconds of the game, and you lose 27-13. And like I said, I don't want to overreact because it's week 1, but Saquon Barkley has not been the same player. He's just not been the same. He isn't. And I was watching yesterday's game a little bit because I was also watching the Chiefs-Browns game, which was an excellent game. But Saquon Barkley yesterday, and even I've noticed this the past couple seasons, and ever since he's gotten these major injuries, he's just not been the same running back. He's doing too much. He's just, and I mean this in I'm not comparing Saquon Barkley to Le'Veon Bell. I'm not. So listen to me, okay? Don't just say, oh, you compare. No. Let me explain this first. When he was first entered the league, he would get the ball and he would just run. And he would make a lot of really good cuts upfield. Now what I'm noticing about Saquon is he's being too conservative. And I don't know if it's a lack of confidence in his offensive line, or if it's maybe even a timing issue between him and Jones, or if it's just yesterday coming off a torn ACL and just being a feeling out process and just trying to get his feeding under him and just get back to the Barkley we all know. So maybe it is that. But something I noticed about Barkley yesterday, I've noticed even a little bit last season as well before he got the injury, which is what's a little concerning, because it's not like this was just after the injury. It might be a little habit he's in. But he's getting the ball, and instead of just running, he's trying to make all these behind the line of scrimmage moves. And I saw yesterday there was a run play where there was an open gap to the left. And he must, he had to make maybe a slight cut to the left, and he could have had a 15, 20-yard game. On the Broncos, literally, you could drive a truck through it. And yesterday, instead, he was going that way. He tried to cut back in, and then, he cut back again, and he got, 2 yards. It could have been, a 15-yard game, and instead he only got 2 yards because he overthought it, and he just did too much. Barkley, when he first entered the league, he was just running. He would make a lot of great moves in the secondary. And that's how he would get all these big 30, 40-yard gains. Now he's making all these little moves, and he's starting to make all these cuts, and he's not getting the big yards he used to. He's doing too much. When at the end of the day, all you got to do is just run. If you downhill runner and make those moves in the secondary, you're going to make a living. Instead, he's trying to do too much at the line of scrimmage, and it's just not working. And we saw it again yesterday. Yesterday he had 10 carries for 26 yards. His average per carries was 2.6 yards. And I'm not trying to just say Barkley but Devontae Booker only had 7 yards as well. But I mean, as a team yesterday, they did not run the ball much. I'm just saying is he's just got to get back to the player he was. Like, I even noticed it last year where he was just making too many moves before the line of scrimmage or too many moves at the line of scrimmage. You know, he used to be a guy that every run, it would seem like he was guaranteed to get 7 yards. Now it's like he's getting up to the line of scrimmage. He's trying to make 3 jukes, and he gets tackled, and boom. What could have been a 10-yard gain is now a 2-yard gain, and instead of talking about a new set of downs and you're moving the change, it's 3rd down and 8. Like, it's just, I don't know, something about it. I don't know if it's confidence. I don't know what it is, but Barkley's got to get back to that old runner, because if the Giants want any chance of doing something this season, if Daniel Jones continues to struggle with turnovers, you're going to need to rely on the run game a lot. You are. So Barkley's got to get figured out, and overall this offense has got to get things figured out, because yesterday was not good. And their secondary yesterday got beat up pretty good, but I mean, when your offense isn't doing anything and your defense is not getting many breaks, what are you going to be able to do? So Giants lose as well yesterday, 27-13. Daniel Jones threw for 22 completions, 37 attempts, 267 yards, 12.1 was average, a touchdown. He did not throw any picks. He had 2 sacks. He did allow a fumble. He had a rating of 90.7. So it wasn't a bad day for him overall, but the fumble, the timing of the fumble, they were driving. It's just like, same thing again. It just seems like it's the same thing again with the Giants and Daniel Jones. And, you know, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this season that's his only turnover. And maybe he throws, or maybe that's his only fumble this season. But it just seems like we're on the same path as we are every year, where it just seems like middle of the season we're going to be talking about his turnovers issues. So that's just me, but we'll see. So that's what I got for the Jets and the Giants. We're already at 30 minutes here, so a lot of time has already gone by here, but it's all right. We could go up to the 40, 45-minute mark because it's fantasy football. I don't talk about that for 30 minutes. I do a little skim through player stuff, so I'm all right if we take a little bit more time on this. But let's get to the rest of the NFL games. So we got the Jets and Giants done. They both moved to 0-1. Jets will play Sunday against New England. That's their home opener, and the Giants will head to Washington for a big early season matchup against Washington. I mean, that's a big matchup for not just the Giants, but for Washington as well, because Washington lost to Los Angeles yesterday against the Chargers. So, you know, whoever loses that game is going to be 0-2 in the NFC East, and that's not good. And whoever wins that game is going to be 1-1 and, you know, already have a division win under their belt. So automatically the team who loses is going to be trailing behind by a couple games already. So that's actually a pretty big game for only being week 2, and it's a quick turnaround for both Washington and the New York Giants. But let's get to the rest of the NFL. So yesterday for my game picks, it was not a good day for my game picks. A lot of upsets, a lot of really shocking wins, which I like, but it's not good for my game picks. And I don't want to just sit here and just worry about my game picks, but I went 7-8 overall on the weekend. I still have today's game, so I'm hoping that whoever I am going to be rooting hard for whoever I pick today, because the team that I picked today, I want them to win, because I do not want to start off the season 7-9 overall on my game picks, because that just means like you're going to be trailing the rest of the season. So last year I went 10-6 week 1. Yesterday, or overall Thursday and Sunday, I've gone 7-8 so far, and tonight's game will decide whether I go 7-8 or 8-8 or 7-9. I'm hoping for 8-8. I'm hoping to at least get to 500, and then hope that next week is a better week in terms of game picks. So we will see how all that plays out. But let's get to the rest of the NFL games. As we'll just start, and it's just how the list here goes from the Sunday night game all the way to the first couple games. But let's get into this here. So the Los Angeles Rams defeated the Chicago Bears yesterday, 34-14. I said this about the Rams. Like I've said this about the Rams many times. Like I'm not saying that the Rams aren't gonna have a good season. I think I ranked the Rams. I could actually check my power rankings here. I think I ranked the Rams as, I had them the 6th best team in the league. So I had them as the top 6 team in the league. Did I have them number 1? No. Did I have them number 2? No. I had them number 6. I've said this all along about the Rams. You know, I believe in them. I believe they can have a very good season. They've done it a lot. I mean, they've done it recently. They're a good team. My one thing with the Rams is this whole Stafford thing. I just don't believe it's what people are going to make it say. And last night, Stafford proved me wrong. And I understand it's week 1 and all that, but last night, Matthew Stafford looked like a very, very, not even just like a very, like a good quarterback that just looks like he's going to win you games, but he looked like a renewed, re-energized quarterback. Like, he just looked like out there last night. He looked like he wanted to be out there. He looked like he was ready. He looked like he had fun playing the game. And I'm not saying he did in Detroit, but I don't know. Something about it just looked like he had a renewed energy yesterday. And that really showed in his play and in terms of how overall the Rams did. And he utilized his receivers. Cooper Kupp with a big game, utilized Woods, utilized Van Jefferson. So he spreaded the ball out. Stafford looked really good. That's the big takeaway from this game. Rams win 34-14. And Chicago, what are you doing? Andy Dalton should have been out of that game right after he threw that interception. Justin Fields did his job. Andy Dalton didn't. And, I think if you're the Bears, I know it's only week 1, but before this season gets out of hand, you gotta give this thing to Justin Fields. Give him the opportunity, give him the chance. Because last night, the offense looked dysfunctional at best. So Rams win 34-13. 34-14, rather. Chiefs knocked off the Browns yesterday, 33-29. Patrick Mahomes, again, coming from behind. I was watching that game yesterday, that and the Giants, although may lose to Chiefs-Browns because the Giants game was getting out of hand, and the Chiefs-Browns was a close game, and I knew that Giants game was over. It was like in the fourth quarter, and the Giants were down by like 2 scores and all that. And so that Chiefs-Browns game was really good, but Patrick Mahomes comes back again. And I keep saying this about the Chiefs. Like, it's just so hard to beat the team. It's just so hard to beat the Chiefs. And the Browns yesterday, it reminded me just like the AFC divisional game, where they had the lead. It looked like the Chiefs weren't ready to play. Like, yesterday, like, to start off that game, it just looked like the Chiefs as a whole, like, just needed to go back into the locker room and come back out. It just was not looking good for them. And then here comes Patrick Mahomes in the second half. And not even that Patrick Mahomes had a big second half and they really did well, but the fact that they held the Browns to 7 points in the second half. The Chiefs outscored the Browns 23-7 in the second half. The Browns went into the half down 22-10. Their offense looked defense was allowing some scores. Come out in the second half, outscore the Browns 23-7. And I got to tell you this. As much as I spoke highly of Baker on the podcast on Friday, and he had a good year last year, I don't know how it's so difficult why quarterbacks can't just throw the ball away. Yesterday, a pure example. It was third down or whatever. Baker Mayfield was under pressure. He should have just threw that ball away. Instead, he threw it into double coverage, intercepted, Chiefs win. And Mahomes leads the comeback once again. Kansas City Chiefs win 33-29. But Browns, I know it's a loss, but still a lot to be excited about if you're a Browns fan this season because they played really well yesterday outside of the fourth quarter. But that's reasonable because a lot of teams tend to struggle against the Chiefs in the fourth quarter, so they're not alone there. Chiefs win 33-29. Dolphins got the job done against New England yesterday, 17-16. What can I say? I said it on Friday. I'm going to say it again today. I've said it throughout the offseason. And I know the Jets go against New England, and just as a Jet fan in general, it's just one of those games where it's like, it's going to be tough to win automatically because New England, no matter how good or bad New England is, they always give the Jets problems. But that's besides the point. New England, for all this hype and all this anticipation they're getting, you put them against a good defense, this offense is so eh. Everyone's highly talking about Mac Jones, Kendrick Bourne, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry. Where was that offense yesterday? Where was that offense? How was that offense yesterday? Where was that? Mac Jones didn't play bad. I'm not saying he did, but all these other guys, what about all these other guys? Kendrick Bourne, your big offseason, he had 17 yards yesterday. I'm just not getting this whole New England went out and spent money, so they're going to win 13 games this season and win the AFC East. I'm not getting that. And yesterday was a pure example of it. And I understand, in all fairness to them, Nelson Aguilar had a good game. Jonnu Smith actually did pretty well. He did his job. 5 catches, 42 yards. But outside of that, your running back was your second leading receiver. And your big, Kendrick Bourne, we got Kendrick Bourne, this and that. He had 17 yards yesterday in the air. I'm just not getting, and I'm not saying that New England's a bad team. But their offense is just, I'm not getting where this whole offensive hype and all this stuff is coming from. I think Belichick knows that. I think a lot of people inside of the Patriot organization knows it. It's a building type year for New England. And yesterday showed that because their offense struggled. And Tua, was he good? He was yesterday. 202 yards. He threw a touchdown. He also had a pick. It wasn't a great pick, but the Dolphins and their defense gets the job done again. I'm telling you, this Dolphins team is going to be very hard to beat in the NFC East. It's not going to be easy. This is a Dolphins team that you can't take lightly. And the Bills got to play the Dolphins next week. And as much as the Bills are going to probably come into that game flying because they just lost to Pittsburgh, and I don't mean that in a negative way to Pittsburgh, like the Bills with all the hype and anticipation to be 0-1, they're probably really fired up to get back out there next week. This Dolphins team you really got to watch out for because this defense is really, really good. Dolphins win 17-16. We already talked about the Broncos-Giants game. Saints-Packers. I mean, I'm going to be quick on this. Saints destroyed the Packers. Rodgers looked terrible. I mean, 2 interceptions. They couldn't get the run game going. Aaron Jones had 5 carries for 9 yards. Devontae Adams was their leading receiver. He had 56 yards. I mean, this Packers offense you know what this Packers offense looked like? This Packers offense looked like they were without Aaron Rodgers yesterday. And they had Rodgers. But this is what the Packers offense would look like if Aaron Rodgers decided not to play this year. That's what it seemed like. But Aaron Rodgers played yesterday, and it looked bad. And Aaron Rodgers did not look like the MVP he was last season. Whatever it is, the Packers got to just forget about this game. This is one of these games where you just roll up and throw out the window. You just forget about this game. Just a bad performance by the offense. I mean, defense can only do so much when your offense isn't doing anything and you're getting 3 and outs all the time. Bad performance by the offense. Bad performance by the defense. And in all seriousness, I mean, this was a New Orleans team that went through a lot. They were not at their home stadium due to the hurricanes and stuff. They were not at their home stadium. They had to go on the road. They've had a lot of stuff get changed on them a lot. This was a very good. This game had a high chance of being one of those games where New Orleans comes into it sleepwalking with everything that's gone on with that team the past 2-3 weeks. But it was really Green Bay that was sleepwalking through this game. New Orleans dominates them. And Jameis Winston, 5 touchdowns. I mean, all right, maybe the Saints do have somebody there. Saints win 38-3. Bengals-Vikings was a very good game. That was a very good game, especially down the stretch there. After the Jets game, I saw that game. I mean, a rare mistake by Dalvin Cook costed the Vikings that game. And that's how it was. And I was sitting there watching that game, and it looked like it was going to be a tie. After Dalvin Cook fumbled that football, I was like, yeah, this game's going to be tied, no doubt about it. And then the Bengals get that big play. I forget what it was exactly due, but it was a big play. It was like a 25, 30-yard gain. And boom, sets them up in field goal range. And the Bengals make the kick, and they win. And they knock off the Vikings. And I'll tell you what, Bengals looked really good yesterday. And the Vikings are no joke. It's not like they played against, a bad team. The Vikings are no joke. The Vikings were a playoff team right? I think they were a playoff team, right? Can't believe I'm forgetting this. No, I don't think they were. I don't know. Vikings are a good team. I mean, the Vikings got talent. Thielen, Jefferson. Thielen had a good game. For the most part, they shut down Jefferson, though. I think he only had like 71 yards. The Bengals surprisingly looked really good yesterday. Burrow in his first game back. Got knocked around a little bit, but took it well. Very a big win for the Bengals to start the year. Because I'll tell you, I don't think many people saw the Bengals. Burrow coming back from a torn ACL, young roster versus a very experienced quarterback in Kirk Cousins, arguably the best running back in the league in Dalvin Cook. Very good win for the Bengals. They win 27-24. Well, the Houston Texans beat the Jaguars 37-21. I was saying to people, I'm not going to read too much into this. I mean, if let's say week 5, the Texans are 4-1. And Tyrod Taylor looks legit, and their defense continues to pick opposing quarterbacks off and all that. Let's say that's happening, then I'll change my mind. I'm not going to read too much into this. I know a lot of Texans fans say are happening. They have the reason to. And I was joking around. This Texans team has all the feelings of last year's Jaguars team. They knock off an ant team. Last year, going into the season, the Colts were a average team. I don't think many people expected them to be great, but they were solid. And that's who the Jaguars knocked off week 1 last year. Now this season, Texans against the Jaguars. It's like Texans come out. Everything that's gone on with the offseason with Watson and the coach and all that and the organization. Texans get the win. I'm not going to read too much into it. It was a very good win. What I will tell you is this, though. The Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence, just like a lot of other quarterbacks, they got a lot to clean up. Because although Lawrence threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, he had 3 interceptions, and those 3 interceptions were all true rookie mistakes. Trying to force passes into tight windows that he would have got away with in college, but we're not going to get away with in the NFL. That's one of the big differences from college to the NFL, and we saw it a little bit yesterday with Lawrence. But like I said, not going to read too much into it. It is what it is. It's his first game. But the Jaguars do need to improve a lot, especially on defense. 37 points to Texans, not great. Texans win 37-21. Niners won yesterday 41-33. And if you're the Niners and you're Shanahan, as much as you win this game, you gotta clap this team back into form because they were smoking the Lions. I think they got a little conservative and a little kind of passive. They were winning 31-10 going into the half, and by a blink of an eye, boom. The Lions were like the 49ers 30-yard line with, about 15 seconds left, and they weren't able to convert the 4th down, but there was a chance that game could have been sent into overtime. So Niners played well, I understand that. And Trey Lance threw a touchdown, Jimmy G fumbled the first snap, all that stuff. Jimmy G ended up having a good game, 314 yards and a touchdown, but this is one of these games for Shanahan. Yes, it's a win. Yes, you played well. Yes, you scored 41 points. But you got to kind of, get this team back into form because it did look like the Niners had a little bit of a loss of focus, started to play a little passive on defense, not as much aggressiveness on offense, and it almost came back to bite them, but they were able to still hold on, get the win. Niners win 41-33. And good job with the Lions, and that's actually a good sign of a new coach. Dan Campbell, new coach there in Detroit, and I know he's kind of been made fun of with all of his weird stuff he does. Just some of the stuff he says and all that. I understand that, but that shows that the coach is doing something right. Is when a team comes back, and we saw it yesterday with the Jets. The Jets could have very well let that game get out of hand, and they could have lost 31-3. But the Jets stayed in it. They fought. They battled through some adversity, and yes, they lost, but they made that thing interesting. They made the game interesting. Same thing with the Lions. Yes, they were losing 31-10, and that game could have easily gone out of hand, and they could have lost 49-13. But they battled back, they fought, and a very good sign with a new coach when your team battles. Because very well the team could just give up and forget about it and say, on to next week. Lions didn't do that. And I know they lost, but it is a good sign that they fought back. Because that team easily could have just given up and looked ahead to next week. And instead, they played that game like each drive was for the win. That's how it was. Niners do pull out the win, but still positive sign coming out of Detroit. Cardinals smoked the Texans yesterday. I've talked about this a lot. I have. I talked about this a lot with the Titans. I like the team a lot. Their offense has capabilities to be something special. They have capabilities to be elite. But their defense is the big issue. And Kyler Murray yesterday looked like an MVP. He did. Big game. And Chandler Jones, can we talk about him? 5 sacks. Are you kidding me? Big day for the Cardinals all around. And the Cardinals came ready to play. And this is a big season for the Cardinals. I said it when I talked about the power rankings. I'm going to say it again. Cliff Kingsbury, big year. If they don't make the playoffs, Kingsbury's probably gone. And there might be other changes to the roster. This is a big year for the Cardinals. Kyler Murray's 3rd year. He's been very good. But maybe this season could be that true MVP caliber year. Yesterday he showed it. The Cardinals just smoked the Texans 38-13. All right, some of the other games that went on, we're running a little short here on time, so I'm going to be a little more quicker with these games. Eagles defeated the Falcons 32-6. Jalen Hurts looked like the guy. And the Falcons, again, their offense stalled, but their defense didn't help them out either. Their defense, really wasn't anything great either. Allowing 32 points and allowing Jalen Hurts to pretty much just toast them. But, just their offense did not look good yesterday. And I'm not going to fall back. I'm not going to go to the card of, Matt Ryan's just done. But, it's like this offense has talent. It's just like, where is it? Like, it was a tough loss yesterday for the Falcons. And another one of these wins for the Eagles that I'm going to read into a little bit more, meaning like, this will definitely be one that catches my eye more than the Texans just because the way Hurts played and Devontae Smith looked good. So, Eagles look very good, and you got to feel confident about that if you're an Eagles fan, 32-6. Steelers beat the Bills 23-16. Big storyline in this game. Steelers defense came to play. They were able to stop very good Bills offense, and we all know how good Josh Allen can be, and they were able to contain them and won the game. Seahawks beat the Colts 28-16. Wentz looked really good. He did. Just at the end of the day, Seahawks, Russell Wilson was just a little too much for that Colts offense. But if you're a Colt fan, you got to like what you see with Wentz, especially the fact that he really just came back about a week ago from that foot surgery. He had the training camp, then he had the surgery. So you do got to feel good about what you saw out of Wentz. But, the Seahawks, just their offense a little too much, which I have a feeling we can get used to saying that a lot because the Seahawks have a very good offense. And the Chargers defeating Washington 20-16. Fitzpatrick, his hip does not look very good, but Taylor Heineke did step in, and he actually had a pretty good game. 11 of 15, 122 yards, a touchdown. This was when I did pick Washington's game. I just think that the Chargers offense is just a little too much. Like, it really is. They really are just a very good team. And Keenan Allen, 100 yards, or 100 receiving yards. Mike Williams, 82. Jared Cook, 56. I mean, it's just, and then Herbert goes off for 337 passing yards. I mean, this Chargers offense is just a little too much for a lot of these teams. And sure, Washington did the job. They stopped them. It wasn't like they let up 35 points, but their offense was just a little too less. And that's been the one question with Washington, is can their offense do enough to get the win? Because we know their defense can, but can their offense? And yesterday, their offense fell a little bit short. Chargers win 20-16. So I went 7-8, like I said, on my game picks. So tonight, Ravens-Raiders. Ravens come in this game 3.5-point favorites. The over-under is set at 50.5. This game goes on today, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. I'll give you some of the other percentages. 60% of people think Baltimore will win this game. And just some injuries update. 3 guys are on the injury list for the Ravens and 2 for Vegas, so neither team's crazy hurt in terms of injury. This is Vegas' first regular season game in their new stadium with fans. Last season, obviously no fans. They played last year there in the Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. They played the entire year there, no fans. This season will be their first regular season game with fans, so big team too in Baltimore coming in. I definitely think that's probably going to be a pretty big crowd. This is a big game for me because this is to go 8-8 on my game picks, which isn't great, but I'd rather that than going under 500. So this is for 8-8 on my game picks. As I mentioned earlier, with all the injuries to the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to say it. I've said it many times. I'm going to say it again. I still believe that the Ravens will win this game, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than what a lot of people expect. With all the injuries to the running back, Hill, Dobbins, and then most recently Gus Edwards, and then the injury to Marcus Peters in the secondary. I know with a lot of the injuries, it's a lot concerning. But I just think Lamar Jackson, his running ability, and I understand that the Raiders, have optimism, on the offense. Henry Ruggs in his second year, Josh Jacobs, all that. I just don't trust Derek Carr enough to go out and, be better than Lamar Jackson and, what he can do. And I understand the running game's bad, but the fact that Lamar Jackson, what he can do with his legs, is really something special. I think the Ravens win this game. I actually think it's a very relatively low-scoring defensive game due to all the injuries and just in terms of I don't think the Raiders' offense is that great anyway. I think the Ravens win 21-17. I think they get a late touchdown, and they get the job done, and they win. 21-17, I'm taking the under on the over-under of 50.5, and I think the Ravens just cover the 3.5. And I think a lot of people are talking about this game saying, the Ravens are going to smoke them. They're going to win 31-10. I would have predicted that. But with all the injuries and stuff, I think the Ravens win, but I think it's going to be lower scoring than a lot of people expected. Ravens win 21-17. And that's my pick for Monday Night Football. So that's the week in football. Ravens, Raiders. Now, it's actually a good Monday night game. Especially with all, I don't mean this in a, positive way, but the injuries do make things more interesting. Because, like I said, if they had no injuries and Dobbins and all them were out there and Peters was out there, I would tell you that the Ravens would probably win that game about 31-14. But you don't know how much they rely on the run game. And I understand they still have Jackson, but Jackson's also got to throw. And, Jackson can't run the ball every play. So, we'll see how everything plays out, but I think the Ravens will win. And that's for 8-8 on the game picks for week 1. So that's what I got there for the recap of the NFL week 1. Took a lot of time, but that's kind of how it always is. Going through all the games and, recapping the Jets and the Giants. That's usually how it is. Coming up next, I will get to fantasy football and all that, baseball, and wrapping up the podcast coming up next. Alrighty, so even though the New York Jets lost this weekend, and they're obviously my favorite team, it was a little bit of the opposite, a lot opposite, for fantasy football, and especially fantasy in general, as I am, unless if Mark Andrews has a big week and goes off for 22 fantasy points, it looks like I'm going to win in both leagues, and I won in fantasy baseball as well, so I moved to the second round of the playoffs in that. So definitely a very big week in fantasy and a very successful week in fantasy. So in my PPR league, I'm winning right now 144 to 122. So a big week for that. Big week in PPR, high scoring. I actually scored the most amount of points in my entire. Take that back. Right now I have the most points, but I still have some guys to go. I still have my defense, so we'll see how everything else goes with that. But right now I've scored the most amount of points in my entire league, in my PPR league, 144. So I've definitely had a very good week. Big performances out of Amari Cooper, 38 points, Adam Thielen, 30. And when I look at my team, and you look at performances and you break it down, the big performances were the fact that I got 68 points between Thielen and Amari Cooper. And that in itself is huge because, I always talk about whenever you look, like you get the fantasy app, right? You get the fantasy app. And I always look at each position. He beat me at quarterback. He had more. So Dak had 33. Tannehill had 16. I beat him at running back 1. Kamara at 18. Henry at 10. He beat me at running back 2. Mixon at 25. Carson at 12. He beat me at wide receiver 1. Keenan Allen at 19. A.J. Brown at 14. But then it turns a little bit. Thielen has 30.2. Sutton has 2. Tunyon has 2. Hooper has 5. So even though Tunyon only got me 2 fantasy points, Hooper only had 5, which isn't a big day either. And then Amari Cooper has 38. Mike Davis has 10. And, defense and kicker, so on and so forth. I have it at my he got one. His kicker got 1 point more than Tyler Bass. But that's the big thing. Is when you break it down, ultimately what won me this was Cooper and Thielen. And A.J. Brown as well had a big day. But it was Cooper and Thielen who got me 68 points there. And if you look at his other position groups, Thielen outscored Sutton by 28 points. And then Cooper had 28 more points than Mike Davis. That's huge. And that's what really won me that. So, Tannehill didn't have a great game. He didn't. He threw a pick. He had a fumble. He did have 2 total touchdowns and 212 yards, and one of those was to A.J. Brown, which was nice. But, he definitely had, 122 points from my opponent would have beat a lot of teams in fantasy this week. Would have beat a lot of teams. But due to some 2 big performances, that's really what won me this week. So, so 144 to 122. Good week there. Tonight I have Baltimore on defense. I think it's going to be more of a defensive game, so I actually do recommend putting in the defenses. Now, if you're winning by, 3, defense might be a little risky. If you're winning by 3, because defense can get negative points easily, if you're winning by 3, I would say hold off on the defense and play the safe game. Now, if your opponent has someone playing like a kicker or a receiver, I would definitely put in the defense. But if you have your defense in, if you have a defense that was going to play today and you're winning by 3 points, I would probably bench your D. If you're in a situation like me where I'm winning by 22 points, he's got no one else left to go, I'm going to put my defense in. There's no way they get negative 30 points. They would have to allow 80 points for that. Not going to happen. So, that's who I got going in that league. Now, my non-PPR league, I am winning right now 112 to 91. Now, I have a 99% chance of winning in this league. Now, my opponent still has Mark Andrews to go. And I calculated the numbers earlier. Mark Andrews has He needs 22 points to win. So Mark Andrews is going to need 22 points, which is not outrageous because it is Mark Andrews, and I do believe that the Ravens are going to rely more on the pass game due to all their injuries at running back. Tyreek Hill had 30 points for him, and Mark Andrews can very well get 22. I've got nobody left to play. So I am winning 112-91, but I don't want to count this one just yet. More than likely I will win, unless a Mark Andrews goes off for 22 fantasy points. It probably won't happen, but that's that. So if everything goes well there, 2-0 in fantasy football. And if you want to break down in this league, well, Herbert, who played well, he got me 15 fantasy points. Aaron Rodgers got him 1. Chubb got me 19. Henry got him 6. Now, Gibson got me 8. Mixon got him 20. So that beat me there. Then Hill had 30. And then Hopkins had 20 for me. But then I beat him out for 7. I had Justin Jefferson at 7. Diggs at 6. Cooper at 25. Like I said, this is a non-PPR league. So this is why Cooper only got 25 points. Cooper had 25. Thielen had him 21. Tunyon had nothing. Mark Andrews still got to play. Robinson got 3. Mostert had nothing. Defense beat him there. And kicker also. So my team... Definitely some better performances. Jefferson could be better. Gibson could be better. Tunyon could be way better. But at the end of the day, Robinson could be way better. I was able to get some big weeks out of Cooper, Hopkins, Chubb, and Herbert. We were able to get the job done. Herbert, 15 points fantasy. He could be better, but he got the job done nonetheless. So that's that. And then as for fantasy baseball, I won last week. Let me see the score here. I won last week 330 to 248. So I knocked off the number 4 seed. So as the number 5 seed, I technically was the underdog, and I knocked off the number 4 seed. So I'm now in the second round of the semifinal, and if I win this, I go to the championship. So that is great because, for the 5 seed, that would be awesome to go to the championship. So if I win this, I go to the championship. Right now, I'm winning 1-0 because the Yankees Twins game is in session. I had Voit going. But let's see. Oh, okay. So, sorry. I thought I had an update for fantasy. But, yeah. So, this is my lineup today. I got Will Smith, Luke Voit, Alex Bregman. I got Jake Cronenworth, but he's day-to-day. Alex Bregman, Marcus Semien, Carlos Correa, Josh Harrison, Whit Merrifield day off. Austin Meadows, Dylan Carlson, and Manuel Margot and Yadier Molina, although Margot's not in the lineup. And I got Alek Manoah on the mound. Some injury update. Jake Cronenworth's day-to-day. Padres aren't expected to place Cronenworth on the injury list while he manages a fractured left ring finger, but he remains without a clear timeline to return to the lineup. Kevin AC of the San Diego Union Tribune reports. So that's that. Pollock is also on the IL. He's on the IL. Cronenworth's not, but Pollock hamstring participated in agility drills in the outfield ahead of Saturday's game against the Padres. Fabian Adraya of the Athletic Report. So that's the update on him. And yeah. Other than that, Cole hamstring remains Yankees' probable starter for Tuesday's game against the Orioles. Brian Hoke of MLB.com reports. So he looks like he'll be ready to go against the Orioles, which is good for my fantasy team and for the Yankees. So that's good to see there. I made a move as well. I added Eric Lawyer and I dropped who did I drop? Oh, Gregory Soto. So I made that move yesterday. Lawyer got the job done. I'm actually going to keep him on my roster because I don't really see any other pitchers out there today. I got Alek Manoah already, and Lawyer's been really good. His numbers this season have been really, really good. So I'm actually going to have him out there. So that's what's up on fantasy. And now we head to the rest of the MLB. As for yesterday, the Diamondbacks won, Rangers won, Dodgers won, Royals won, Cheaters won, Giants won, White Sox won, Cardinals won, Braves won, Rockies won, Blue Jays won, Nationals won, Brewers won, Tigers won. Blue Jays won 22-7, so it's week 1 in the MLB as well. That's a football score there. And the Mets beat the Yankees yesterday 7-6, so the Yankees moved to 79, Mets moved to 72 and 72 on the season, Yankees moved to 79 and 64. As for today, we got the Nationals, Marlins, I'll give Nationals the win. Blue Jays, Rays, I'll give Blue Jays the win. We'll get to Mets, Cardinals in a second. Cheaters, Rangers, I'll give Cheaters the win. Padres, Giants, I will give Giants the win. Dodgers, Diamondbacks, give Dodgers the win. And Red Sox, Mariners, I will give Red Sox the win. Mets Cardinals also play today. Mets come in this game 72-72. Cardinals come in this game 73-69. This game goes on today, 7:10 Eastern on Picks. Cardinals got Adam Wainwright on the mound. He's 15-7 with a 2.98 ERA, and the Mets got Rich Hill on the mound. He's 6-6 with a 3.82 ERA. The over/under for this game is set at 8, and I'm going to give the Cardinals the win. Yankees also play today. Yankees right now are actually in session. They're losing 5-2 in the bottom of the 8th. So I have that game going. Yankees are 79-64. We'll see if the Yankees can get the comeback. College football also a big weekend. Miami won, very close, but they won. Clemson won, and Texas A&M won, and then some other teams: Stanford, BYU, Arizona State, North Carolina, Mississippi, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Mississippi was Ole Miss. Arkansas, Wisconsin, Iowa, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Florida, Oregon, Auburn, and Coastal Carolina all won. Oregon, man, they're watch out. They're a really good team this season. They are a very, very talented football team. So that's big for the Pac-12 too, because the team was not at a playoff team in a couple years now. I think Washington might be the last team, but Oregon this season looks really good. So good for them. But tonight we got Monday Night Football on, so that will be very good. Ravens, Raiders, first round event Monday Night Football for the season. I've always liked Monday Night Football because, after Sunday, especially, the fact that the Jets lost and all that, I've always said this. Like, I can't stand Mondays. Can't stand Mondays. Just hate them. Hate them, hate them, hate them. Can't stand Mondays. I've always said that. I think a lot of people are in the same boat as me. Don't know many people out there. Actually, I don't know anybody out there who likes Mondays. But what I will tell you is this. Is one thing that makes Mondays better, especially, I've always feel like on a Monday, you're always tired and you're always like, you don't want to do anything. I've always said this on Mondays. Like, on Monday, when you get up and all that, you're tired and it's like, oh, back to the grind and back to the week. Like, reality just smacks you in the face. When the Jets win, though, it's like, okay, yeah, it's Monday, but it's the Jets win. Like, I've always said that. When the Jets win, makes my Mondays 10 times better. So the Jets didn't win yesterday, so my Monday was the usual, where coming out of the weekend, reality just smacks you in the face. That's what I like about Monday Night Football. Because, like, now you got to wait all the way until Sunday. Well, that's not the case. You got Monday Night Football tonight, and then you got Thursday Night Football on Thursday. Of course, it's on Thursday. I don't know. Why would they say, why would Thursday Night Football be on Friday? I didn't need to say that. So you got Monday Night Football tonight, and then Thursday Night Football. Which, Washington Giants is actually a big NFC East matchup beginning in the year, considering both teams lost week 1. So that should be a good game. But especially the fact that the Jets lost, it's like we get another football game on, something to look forward to, and something to watch tonight. So that could be good. And it's actually going to be a good game. I'm excited to see Ravens, Raiders. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. So a lot of that. Hopefully the Jets can win next week, though. That would be very nice. But, yeah, that'll do it for the podcast today. Another good podcast in the books. Tomorrow we will recap pretty much probably the game, Ravens-Raiders game, and then kind of just wrap up week 1 in the NFL. Just, overall wrap things up. We kind of did that today, but tomorrow we'll talk about recap the game and kind of just put the icing on the cake to week 1 in the NFL season, and then we'll gear our focus to next week. So that should be good. So that'll do it for today. Yankees, go Yankees. Got to hope for a win. Need to turn things around, and looking forward to that. Looking forward to the Ravens-Raiders game tonight. So that will do it. As always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.